Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Her Data Learns. I'm Janushki and I have my co-host Jennifer with me. Today we have a special guest. Jennifer, would you like to introduce her?
Yes, and I might be a little bit of fangirling right now. We have Kasia with us today, and she is going to show us all of her extraordinary talent in making animations and her wonderful visualizations. Many of you in the Tableau public community may already know all of the visualizations that she's published. I was just sharing that hers was one of the first ones that I saw in the Tableau public community, and it was that garbage in the ocean. It changed my life, and now I want to be you when I grow up, as I shared with you. So if you could please introduce yourself and get us started with what we're going to learn today.
Yeah, so I'm Kasia Gasiewska-Holc. I'm a senior marketing analyst at LSEC at the moment. I'm just a huge fan of Tableau Public. I guess that's my profile.
So today you're going to teach us about how to create the animated screensaver on your last viz on Dwight's computer, right?
Yeah, so I'm gonna cover, so today the tutorial will be about recreating the screensaver animation, but I'm also going to show you a couple of different tricks that might be useful if you try to build animation yourself. So I think we can start with that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm so excited. And I love that viz because I'm a huge Office fan too. That was like the first viz I did on Tableau Public. So when I saw you did this, I was like, my two loves are coming together.
I'm very glad you liked it. So without further ado, let's begin. So first of all, I'm gonna show you the viz for those who might not be familiar with what we're trying to do today. You can see my screen, right? All good?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, so that's basically what we're trying to do today. So just a couple of words of introduction in terms of animations in Tableau. This is nothing more than just the web page object in terms of technical requirements. A web page object in Tableau Public on your dashboard. So in order for this to work and show smooth movement, we have to create HTML object. So we have to first create some graphic in a tool that allows you to work with vectors. I will cover this in a second. Then we have to wrap a bit of a code to convert a vector to HTML, publish this to the server, and then we can use this as our animation. So we're going to cover everything today. So let's begin. So we're going to start in Adobe Illustrator. I'm going to just open a new file in here. And you don't have to use Adobe Illustrator, really. It's just something that I've been using since I remember. So I'm very familiar with this tool and, very comfortable with it. But there are different tools that you can use. I believe there are some tools that are either free of charge. I'm not sure of the names, perhaps Krita, CorelDRAW, that might not be free though. There's also this tool called SVG Edit, I think. So depending on your requirements, you can find a lot of different alternatives. You don't have to have Adobe Illustrator in here. As long as it's a tool that allows you to work with vectors, then you're good. So first of all, why do we need vectors? We need vectors because our animation, as we see it in here, it has to work on different, different resolution of the screen. So we have to be able to easily resize everything that we do in here, if necessary, without loss of quality. So that's something that vectors allow you to do, because every single element in a vector graphic is actually just a bunch of mathematical equations that describe various points that are connected together and that create image. So in this case, we have just like a rectangle in here in the background. This is just the blue rectangle. And on the top of that, we just have Dunder Mifflin logo. So that logo is just a couple of mathematical equations that tell us to you know, put some points in specific places, connect them, and bam, bam, you have the graphic ready. So we need to do this because when we do animations, we will transform those vectors. So we will tell SVG that we have to like move our graphic in certain direction, or maybe resize it. So there are different things that we will cover today, but for the purpose of this presentation, we're just going to move it from side to side and just like bounce it around. So I just opened a new file in Adobe Illustrator. At the moment, it's 1000 by 800 pixels. Obviously, you can select your own size, so the one that you prefer. I don't even think that's exactly what my screensaver view is published on Tableau Public is exactly, but this is just going to work fine. So first of all, I'm going to open a window for layers. It's actually quite important. So at the moment, you can see that we have layer 1, and we're going to use this layer as our background. So I'm going to select the rectangle tool from the side in here, and I'm just going to drag it. You can also just click once on the artboard and just select size in here. That works perfectly fine as well. So now I'm going to go to the top in here and just remove the stroke that is default. And now I need to find the correct blue for the fill-in. So I'm gonna go to my cheat sheet in here. I just have this color saved in here. Actually, I think it's this one. I'm just gonna copy it. Doesn't have to be exactly the same. And I'm gonna go here and just change the color. So I'm gonna remove that, paste the color that I had in there, and that's my background. So now I'm going to rename that layer to background. And naming in here is quite important. You will see this in a second. Why? Because ultimately what we want to do is export this view. So export all of the mathematical equations that are behind what we do in here. And we want to add some HTML code to this. So if you don't have everything properly named, then it will be really hard to identify certain elements in your code later on. So for now, I'm going. Sorry.
So yeah, naming them, because I like to do Calc 1, so it's good. We need to name stuff. Okay.
Yeah. To be fair, I never name things in any other work. Like I'm very messy. So this is the only kind of exercise where I actually use proper names because I'm just too lazy to do that with other projects, unfortunately. But in here, I just learned hard way that it's actually quite useful. So now I'm going to log this. I'm gonna click on this log toggle here. And the reason I'm locking this is because I'm going to add a new layer and I just don't want to move around the background. I just want this to be static. So now if you have a look at our example on the live dashboard, you can see that this animation is actually very simple from the graphic point of view, because it's just this background and the logo. So now we just need to find the logo. And I actually have found this website called Seek Logo, where you can just find different logos in vector format. And that's actually quite important. It has to be vector. You can have a PNG logo, for example, as well. But in order for this to work properly, you would have to convert PNG to vector in Adobe Illustrator, which is possible, but it's probably outside of what we want to cover today. So I'm just gonna use this website to download the logo. Let me just download this.
If you were not able to find the logo, would you have created it yourself?
Yeah, I would create it. So typically, if I can't find something, I would just use. So let me actually quickly show you this. So down there, logo. So I could, let's see, if this is PNG. Well, maybe I'm just gonna copy this, it doesn't matter. So what I would typically do is I would just copy an image, paste it. Obviously, we want this smaller. And then you have this option in Illustrator. It's called Image Trace. So you can click it. And then if you just expand this window here, that gives you a couple of useful things. So for example, I can click on Ignore White, and that's going to cut out any white elements in here. And now if I click Expand, that's actually our vector. However, if you zoom in here, you can see that it's, just click, it's actually, I don't know if it's visible on the screen, but you can see that there are some imperfections. For example, above D or above N, there are some gaps. So you can fix it with pen tools, for example. You can, move around different points in here, but it's just added complexity that you can avoid if you use vector image to begin with. But if you don't have that option, then that's always some sort of solution. You would just have to spend a bit more time to fix that.
Nice.
So now, let me just go to the download folder. Oh, sorry, I actually opened this already. Yeah, so we have the logo here. Let's have a closer look at this. I'm just gonna overlap it with the end of my dashboard here, because I just want to show you something. So now, as you can see, as I'm moving the rectangle here, it's actually detached from these letters. So what we have in here is just the background, and on the top of that, we have letters. So for the sake of simplicity, when we create animation, ideally, we just want to move one element around rather than moving multiple elements. Because if we move multiple elements, then you would find that the code would be quite large, and it will be quite hard for you to understand where you are in the code if you have too many elements that are unnecessary. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back here. And I'm just going to go to the eyedropper tool, sorry, not eyedropper, but magic wand. And the magic wand tool selects similar elements based on, I believe, colors. So I can group this selection by hitting Control-G or go into Object and Group. So I can actually go here. So now I have my background. If I click on the background, I can see that letters are not highlighted. And when I click on letters, everything is highlighted in here. So I can click both of these, I can select both of these layers by selecting the Shift key, or either just dragging over the whole element in here. And now I would go to the Pathfinder window. Again, if you can't find this, you can just go to Window and Pathfinder. And I'm going to select the minus front option. So at the first glance, you can see nothing changed, but when I move this to the end of the artboard in here, I can actually see that my letters are now cut out. So that's exactly what I wanted, because what I have now is just one element. It's just this background with some letters cut out of it. So that's exactly what we want. The only difference is that we want to change the color here. So I'm gonna change it to plain white. And I'm gonna copy this by hitting Control-C or going to Object, sorry, Edit and Copy. And I'm gonna go back to my, my background. And I'm gonna, actually, you can see that the background is slightly misaligned, so we can fix this. I'm gonna unlock the background, click on it again, go to the Align window that you can find in the window pane as well here. Just gonna click on the horizontal align left and vertical align center, just to make sure that it's properly aligned. I'm gonna lock it again, go back to layer 2 and paste my logo by hitting Control-V. So now I have the logo. I think it's just a bit too small, so I'm gonna just expand it a little bit. So in here, I'm selecting Shift and Alt, and I'm just dragging any corner that I have in here to expand it. Yeah, I think that's fine. Maybe it's too big, so maybe just a tad smaller. Okay, and that's actually everything that we need for now from Illustrator. So it looks like maybe there's some loss of quality in here, but it's just a zoom out in here. Everything seems fine when I zoom in. I'm going to rename this layer to logo. And for now, that's everything. But I'm going to move this element to the upper left-hand side corner, because that's where I want my animation to start. So again, I'm going to click on this icon at the upper right in here to align it horizontally to the left. But for now, I'm going to align it to the top as well, so it appears at the top of the screen. So that's everything for now. What we have to do now is export this view to generate the SVG code that we're going to use for our HTML code. So I'm going to go to Save As in the File section, and I'm going to select from the drop-down SVG. I don't have to worry about the name in here because I'm actually not going to save this. I'm just going to show this window. So this is the window that will come up once you try to save SVG. And what I'm interested in is, instead of clicking OK, is the SVG code button here. So I'm going to click on it. So that's the code that is generated automatically. So you can see there's quite a lot of information. You don't have to understand everything. But basically what we have in here is just mathematical information about what we just created. So you can see that, for example, we have here GID logo. So that's just a group where our logo is stored. So everything that we have within this group describes our logo and all the functions that are used to build the logo. Then we have the group called background, and you can see that it's just a rectangle with width and height here selected. So I'm going to copy this. I don't have to change anything just now here, but I'm going to open the Visual Studio Code. You can use any text editor that you want. You can use
Notepad++.
Yeah, like you can even use, yeah, exactly. So even like a default notepad, like it doesn't really matter. But I find this tool quite useful. I think it's actually for free, but it's very useful because it allows you to very quickly see, you know, different elements. And if I save it to HTML, so I'm gonna go without changing anything just yet. I'm going to save it to my folder as, let's say, our logo animation.html. If I save it like that, you can see that it automatically edited classes in here that we're going to speak in a second. So you can see exact colors, how they look. So something that is not immediately obvious if you just use Notepad or, you know, some more basic text editor. So that's why I like this one. So now that we have this code, let's again look at this from the top. So we have some information at the top in here that we don't need. So all we have to keep is whatever is between SVG tag, the opening tag, and the closing tag. So I'm just going to remove these two first lines at the top. And we just have some information about our SVG file. We have some information about the size of it. You know, X and Y is just the position where the graphic starts. And then you have ViewBox. So this is ViewBox is the same as the artboard in Illustrator. So basically everything that is within ViewBox will be shown in the animation. Everything that falls out of the view box will not be shown. So if I, let's say, go back to our Dunder Mifflin logo, and if I would just move it outside in here, then this is outside of the view box because view box is this white space in here. So I have to make sure that everything is constrained to this white space only if I want to have this visible in the final file. And then, as I mentioned before, we have this group for background, and we have this super huge group for logo that consists of a couple of paths. So path will be just like let's say a line between points, and this is just a group of different paths that create the Dunder Mifflin logo. So if I would decide to keep letters on that logo and not cut them out, then I would end up with a lot more rows of data in here, because every single letter would have to be described in a similar way. So that's why the simplified approach is actually preferable, at least for me. So now I've created this formulas template that you can use for any animation. It works for any context. So yeah, so we're gonna copy this code, and I'm just gonna go back to my logo animation and just paste it. So now I want to replace this section of the code with everything that follows. So basically everything that we just generated from Adobe Illustrator. So I'm gonna remove that section, make space for it, and I'm just gonna go ahead and copy cut everything that I have in here and just paste it in here. So I'm gonna remove some of the extra spaces, go up. Okay, so next step, as you can see, we have additional things that we have to change, which are indicated by the green font in here. So we have to insert our CSS styles in here. So our CSS styles at the moment sit within the SVG file, which is here. So we have to cut this portion of the code and replace the style tag in our template with what we have in here. And this is, for now, this is everything that we need. So I'm just gonna edit this a little bit so that it's easier to read. So I'm just gonna move it a little bit. This one is fine. So there's one more thing that we have to do before we can test this out, but I'm gonna show you why we have to do it in a second. So I'm gonna save it. Now I'm going to go to the folder where I've saved my HTML5. Just remember that it has to be saved with HTML as an extension, file extension. So it's logo animated. I'm going to double click on it. And now it's open in Chrome. And that's my logo. But you can see that it's taken a lot of space. And just clicking Control- like you would typically to just change the zoom isn't really doing anything, because at the moment our SVG thinks that it has to fill in like entire space of our screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add one additional class, which I have in here. So I'm just going to copy this section of the code, and I'm going to explain it in a second. So I'm going to copy this and go to our styles and just paste it in here. So for anyone who is not familiar with CSS styles just allow you to kind of define different formatting of your HTML code elements. So if you have multiple different elements that you want to have similar features, like color, like a font size, or just fill, whatever, you can just create one style and simply apply that style to all the elements that should share this style. So you don't have to copy over the same information and paste it every single time you add new element that you want to have similar, you know, view of. So basically similar formatting of. So in here, first of all, what I've added is body margin 0. So what that does, it removes little margins that we have in here at the top. It's going to remove this. And then I'm going to add the container class. So the container class is just going to tell our HTML to preserve the size that we want to see, rather than trying to force the screen to fill in with entire animation. So the only difference that I have to apply at this point is to add this class to our SVG file. So in this, on this line in here, I will just have to add class equals class equals container. So you can see that SVG already applied some classes to paths to the logo, for example. They are all called ST1. So let's see what ST1 is. ST1 is actually just a fill class with white color, which is what we would expect to see because that's what we said in Illustrator. We changed the color to white. Then we have ST0, which is just the plain color of our rectangle. And you can see that we're also applying this to the rectangle within the background group. So everything is matching what we would expect to see. So now I'm gonna save it again, and I'm gonna go back to my browser, and let's try to refresh it. So you can see now the size is actually what we would expect to see in Tableau Public. And that's also a very important information, is that Tableau Public web objects do not resize animations. Like it has to match exactly the size that you want to your dashboard to be in. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a lot of scroll space. So you would have some vertical and horizontal scrolls, and it wouldn't just look nice. So that's why this step is actually quite important. So now this is actually a good beginning. So we have our SVG uploaded as HTML. We can technically use it as a web page object, but obviously we want to add animations. So first of all, before we jump into the actual animation that we want to do, we can just start with moving the logo from upper left-hand side corner to the lower left-hand side corner. So what we want to do is we want to move from 0.00 to 0.1000 by 800, because that's the size of our artboard. And any movement of our elements will be based on the upper left-hand side corner. So you have to think in terms of where you want this left-hand side corner end up. So we want this to end up in here, because then the animation, like the logo, will disappear. So in order to create animation, we just have to use very simple code. I'm going to go back to my formulas template, and this is everything that we need actually. So I'm just going to copy this, and you have to place it within the element that you want to animate. So it has to be within the logo group in our case. I'm just going to paste it here and maybe move it around a little. So what do we have in here? So the function that moves things around is called animate transform. Then you have attribute name. At the moment, it's set to transform. I will show you a couple of different examples where this value is different. So it can be rotate. So instead of moving something, transform just moves things from left to right, from top to bottom. Instead of using transform, you can use rotate, for example. So then the logo will spin around. You can use scale. So you can perhaps scale it down or scale it up. And you can also use skew Y and skew X and Y to just change like the angle at which the object appears. So I'm going to show you these examples in a second. But then we have to declare parameters in which we have to move. So in here, we're going to start from 0.00, because that's where our logo sits at the moment. And we're going to move it to 1,800. So the first number represents X position, and the second number represents Y position. Then we have the begin. So that just tells us where we want to start. You can, for example, say start after 5 seconds. So what would happen is that for first 5 seconds, nothing would happen, but after the 5th second, the animation would start. And then you have duration. So duration tells us how long we want the animation to last. So if you input here like 50 seconds, then your logo would be moving in very slow rate, at very slow rate. But if you put something small, then it's gonna just, you know, jump from one corner to another corner in a very quick period of time. And then you have repeat count. So you can say, you don't have to use it, but I typically use it in order to loop animation. So if I want this to be indefinitely repeated, then I would use this section, a portion of the code as well. So let's try this out. I'm gonna save it again.
Exciting.
Yeah, I like
it works. Oh, it's
oh my
moving.
goodness. I'm so excited.
It's moving. Yeah, and you can see that it disappeared and jump right back to the start, because that's where because we set this to indefinite in terms of repeats of animation. One disadvantage in here is that maybe there isn't a very smooth appearance of the logo at this position, because it's actually again starting from the 0.00 point. So if you would, you should actually start from the point where the lower right-hand side corner is. But because it's so fast, I think it's not that visible, so it's fine for this example. So now, as I mentioned, go back to the code. So now, as I mentioned, instead of using the translate, which is just the function of moving things around from in various directions, we can use different values in here. So I'm gonna show you how this looks. So first of all, we have rotate, for example. I'm gonna open this because I have this done before. So this is rotation of, and I've added the orange element. So that just indicates that this rotation happens around this point. So this is always this left upper left hand side corner. So you can actually change it. You can trick it to do this, let's say, relative to the center of a logo. That's also possible, but by default it will always pick this this element here. Another one would be this rotation, for example. So we just going round and round, just having fun. And then we can also scale something. So now I'm just scaling it on the y-axis. So you can just, yeah, I don't know why you would want to do this in this particular example, but you can do this. We also have skew x. So skew x is just going to, just like kind of change the angle. And I set this to actually 2 animations. So first of all, it's going to the right, and then it's going back to the left. And last one is skew y. It's similar, it's just changing like that. So that's everything that you can do in terms of using the animate transform function. But now, obviously, what we want to do is a slight adaptation of what we have in here. So at the moment, we just have movement from one side to another. But what we actually want to do is move that logo along some invisible path, right? So it's almost like you want it to move from top corner to the very bottom corner, then to the right corner, and so on. So you have to somehow provide information as to what this path is, and then we can move that logo along that path. So what we have to do is we have to make some adjustments to our Illustrator file in here. So I'm going to lock the logo screen, and I'm going to add new layer, and I'm going to call it path. So now I'm going to use the pen tool, and I'm going to so just select a couple of different points that will create a path along which I want the logo to move. So at the moment, the logo is in here. So let's say my first point, it can be here. Then I'm gonna go, let's say here. I'm gonna move down. Okay, I'm gonna switch off the color in here. I've just disabled the fill in here, so that's easier to see. I'm gonna go here, maybe here again, and here. And let's say we can just go back to the starting point. So that's something that we're not going to display in our element, in our animation, but we need this in order to create mathematical equation that will tell animation where to go. So first of all, what I have to do, I have to convert these lines to compound object, compound path. This will be important just for animation and for our SVG code. So I'm going to go to object, compound path, and just make. And you won't see any visible change in here, but the change happened in SVG code. So now I'm going to go back to File, Save As, again using the SVG. SVG code, I don't have to copy everything, but I'm going to go to the very bottom in here. And I'm going to copy just this little group in here. So this group is called path. That's why I named it this way. So it's easy to identify it. I'm going to go back to our Visual Code Studio, and I'm just going to add it here. So that's our path. And let's look at the class in here. So in here, the class is st2. Let's see if we have st2. So we actually don't have st2. So we have to go back to our code and copy the st2 class. So you can see the fill is none. You actually don't have to copy this. You can write it yourself, but it would probably be easier for those who are not familiar with CSS classes. So that's everything that we need in here. So we have this path. If I just save it now, go back to my file, you can see nothing changes, right? Because we actually don't want to display this path. We just want to use this for animation. So now a little adjustment to our animate transform function is animate motion. So animate motion is very similar, but the only difference is that in here, instead of telling HTML code to go from 0.00 to 1800, we're going to use a path as a source of our movement, let's say. So a source of group of points where we want to go. So I'm going to copy this section, paste it where we had the animate transform. I'm going to remove it because we don't need this anymore. So now I have this animate motion in here. I have some random path in here included, but I actually want to use the new path that we created. So I'm going to remove these parameters, go down, and just copy the values within the D element. And let's paste it here. So let's break this down. So we have animate motion, duration is 15 seconds. So basically the whole movement from all the corners will happen within 15 seconds. So that the whole rotation, let's say, will last 15 seconds. Then again, repeat count indefinite. So that's why I ended my path in the 0,0 point, because from the 0,0 point, this is where we started, right? So in order for the animation to look smooth, we have to begin when we have to end where we started. And that's it. You see, it's very simple in here. It's just all these three parameters. I'm gonna save it and let's look how it looks now. Oh, okay. So it's going too far, right? Why is this happening? This is happening because, again, our animation is relative to the point in the upper left-hand side corner. So what we have to do is we have to somehow account for that. So we have to slightly adjust our path. So for now, I'm just going to add a new path and maybe disable visibility of this one. So this one will be called path 2. So let's think what we have to change in here. We just have to tell our path to just stop slightly higher on the bottom and slightly more to the left on in here. So if I just copy, I'm gonna copy the logo here.
That's so smart. I was thinking, oh, there's some math to kind of understand which end of the logo we would have to use to do that, but this is so much smarter.
Yeah, very simple. So I'm gonna just, it doesn't make sense, obviously. You can just put a rectangle of that given size in here. But what I need is just like, I need to have some bound, so know where to stop so that the logo stops at the right section, So I'm gonna do this. I'm also going to copy this twice in here and put this in the lower left and expand it like that, right?
Genius.
So, yeah, it doesn't really matter, right? Like what you had in here, you're not going to use this. Right. So, sorry, actually I have to cut this out and put it in path 2. and just move it to the bottom that way. So now everything is in here. So I'm gonna log the logo again, and I can log the path too. So now let's take that logo actually, and let's try to move it. So if I move it like that, right? If I stop here at this line, the logo will be visible. If I go any further on the x-axis, some part of the logo will disappear. So that's why this line in here and the bottom line is the maximum where I can go. So this is now logged. I'm gonna create new layer and call it final path, let's say. Everything is locked. I'm taking the pen tool again, and now I'm gonna move to this point. Sorry, actually I have to start at the 0 point. So starting with the 0 point, I'm gonna go here, gonna go here. Again, forgot about the fill, I always do. Go here, now there, maybe here. Let's go crazy. And here, and going back to the 0 point. So it's similar, right? What we did before, but now it's just constrained to this smaller area to ensure that the entire logo appears. So I'm gonna go again to object and compound path make, and that's it. So now I'm gonna go to save as, SVG code, and I'm gonna locate the final path. Where is it? Oh, there we go. So I'm gonna copy this. Actually, I don't have to copy everything. I'm just gonna use that, the D value, right? Because that's everything we need. Because the class, we know that it still has to be fill none, so nothing changes there. So I'm gonna replace and my animate motion, I'm gonna replace these numbers. Oh, again, sorry, I don't think I copied this. So copying this again. And paste it. Cool. Okay, oops. I'm going to save it, and let's see what happens now. Oh yeah, it's working. So it's just bumping around these corners, right? So it's perfect. So now let's look at our logo again. What's different? So now we have this, one might say cool, another one can say it's tacky color change in here. So we can look into that. So how to change the color, so kind of animate the change in color in here. So I have the code for that as well in here. So what we have to do is we just have to add two classes. We have to add class for ST animation. So I'm just gonna copy this. Actually, I'm gonna copy everything. And just paste it here. Edit this slightly. So what we have in here, this pink section in here, this is just a function of color change. So it's just a change of appearance of certain element. At this point, we're not saying which element we want to edit. We just know that we want the color to change from yellow to orange, red, and so on. And we want to end in at yellow so that the animation is smooth again. Percentages in here represent the time, percentage of time of the entire animation in which we want each color to occur. So next, at the very bottom, you can see that I've copied the ST animation. So that's how we need to change our fill. So at the moment, the fill is white because that's our color of the logo, but we can actually remove it. And instead of that, we can just use this section. So it's the same class as ST1, but now we're saying that instead of using a static color, use animation, color change within 25 seconds, and do this infinitely. So it's not going to stop. So I'm gonna save it and go back to our logo. And yeah, now refresh, you can see that it's changing from orange to red to pink.
So it's not changing according to the bump. It's splitting it
No.
into 10 different percentages and changing according to time.
Yeah, exactly. You could set this to kind of align with your animation, but I think it will be slightly harder because then you would have to know how long exactly each bump takes, right?
Yeah.
So it's possible, but then you would have to adjust those percentages to how much time it takes animation to move from one corner to another, basically.
Yeah.
So that's basically it. I think it's quite simple. So now moving on to how we can move from this to Tableau. So now, as you can see, the file is stored locally. It's on my desktop in here. So what I have to do is I have to publish this to some server location. So I do have Amazon S3 server, which I think is the best solution in here. However, it's a paid solution. So, you know, you can probably find some free services as well. But in my case, I'm just using S3. Just an example of a free solution. I found this website. You know, I cannot vouch for it, but I think it's a solution worth exploring. It seems to be entirely free. So in here you can just host your files on Google Drive and just publish them through Google Drive. And the reason why we need Google Drive in here is because if you upload that HTML5 to Google Drive, it's just going to appear as a code. It's not going to load animation because Google Drive is not storing, hosting websites, unfortunately. It used to host websites, but since 2015, it does not longer host any websites. So you can actually convert that code that you upload to Google Drive. You would just have to, you know, upload the HTML file that we have in here, right? This one, the logo animation. You just have to upload it to Google Drive and then just connect to this website. And it's very simple, easy. I tested this out, but I'm not going to vouch for it because I've never really used it. So I would say that you can just explore it on your own. Perhaps this is something worth trying, but I think definitely safer solution would be just having a regular server, or, you know, if you just have like any website domain where you can upload files to share using a URL, then that would work as well. So I'm gonna just sign in here and just show you how to upload it here. So I'm in my Amazon server. I'm gonna click on S3. And I'm just going to select my objects and I'm going to drag the file in here. So now I don't have to change anything in here. The name of the file will be what is used in the final URL. I just need to set permissions, change permissions in here to grant public read access and just select I understand and select upload. Now it's uploaded, you can see 100%, so I can click on the file in here. And that's the final URL that we're going to use in Tableau. So I can click on it and you can see that it loads the same thing, but the difference is now that it's being uploaded to the website, so now everyone will be able to see it, versus in this example, we had this on local machine, so only we could see this, so it wouldn't be available for public access. So now I'm gonna copy this link and I'm gonna go to Tableau. So in here, I already have a dashboard set up to the same size as our web object, 1000 by 800. And I'm gonna place the web page object in here and just paste that URL. Also, one note, Tableau only accepts secure links, so it has to have the HTTPS instead of HTTP. Now let's load it. Okay, it's fine. I can see some scrolls in here. It's probably due to padding, so I can just remove that. If it's still in there, I typically just, let's see. Yeah, so we have something in here as well. Okay, now it's 0, so you can see it fills entire space. So I can now go to save to Tableau public. And I'm just gonna call it animation.
This is so cool. I immediately want to try this.
Yeah, and I think the Tableau part is actually very, very quick. You know, it's just maybe more setup that you have to do prior to that, but you can see it works perfectly fine in Tableau. So now just a couple of things that we can test out as well. So if I just go to Visual Code Studio, just to go back to the parameters that we have in here, I know we just have 2, but you know, just to show you. So if I just change it to, let's say like 5 seconds, for example, and save it, and use the local copy again, just to show you. It moves extremely fast. So, you know, it's actually, you can't look at it. Yeah, so that's everything that you can change in here, but I can just show you a couple of examples that I've used it for. So that's the first dashboard that I've ever implemented this technique on. So yeah, so in here, what we have is just 4 layers in Illustrator of this wave. And this wave is actually expanding outside of the view box in here. But because there's some image outside of the view box, it looks like it's very smooth in here. So basically, I did this for all the 4 waves in here, and I've just moved it from right to left, from left to right, or yeah. And I actually had the a tutorial on this
Yes.
that I did for Kevin Flairlich. So in here, I've explained the whole process for this particular example. So I think that might be interesting for those who want to learn more about this. Then I also had this viz. So let me just refresh it. So this viz was about missions to moon, and what I did in here with the background, you can see there was a shooting star. You can also see that if you look at some of the dots in here, I've changed the scale of them, right? So I had some circles in here that I was just changing the scale of from like very big to very little, so it appears as they're just twinkling. And the shooting star, like here, I don't know if it's visible on the screen, but there is a shooting star as well. So that was basically just taking like a circle, just expanding it. So just rescaling it again and moving it from element outside of the artboard. So I set this to negative values as a starting point, and I moved it to like some points that were outside of my artboard again, but at the right-hand side in here. Then I had the Spooky Man viz. So actually this one was most complex in terms of animations. I really went crazy with this one because, just load it. Yeah, so in here, first of all, birds flying away. Then you have the witch, it's moving slightly up, slightly down. Then you have leaves in here, so they are falling one by one. And then we also had these hands that are randomly coming up, and also pumpkins are slightly swinging from left to right in here as well. So that was quite extensive. And the last one was just this vinyl that was just spinning around. So that was quite easy, actually. Yeah, and that's basically it.
You make it sound so easy, and I can't wait to try it, but I imagine it might not go so smooth for me. I love this. If you have
any questions, then, you know, just shoot me a message. I'm super happy to help. But honestly, I think it just looks more complicated than it really is. As long as you name your layers properly in Illustrator and just maybe use these template formulas, I think you will be safe.
Oh, we're so excited to try it, Kasia. Thank you so much for joining us and teaching us so well.
Yeah, I hope it was useful and you find it helpful and you try animations yourself.
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
I really want to try it. I don't know what I'm going to get to move, but I'm going to get something to move.
I know exactly.
Can't be the first I tell.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time and effort putting all of this together for us. So thank you again.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me and letting me share my knowledge on this.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.